Welcome to the PFFUI podcast. On this month's episode, President Tony Murray and Vice President Mike Whitehead recap the 2024 legislative session and discuss bills that have been signed into law by Governor Eric Holcomb. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the PFFUI podcast. My name is Eric Schoib, and I'm joined today by President Tony Murray and Vice President Mike Whitehead. Hey guys, how's it going?
Things are great. How you doing, Eric?
Oh, I'm doing just well, Tony. Thank you very much for asking.
Very good. Very good here.
The Indiana General Assembly adjourned Friday, March 8th. Since then, numerous pieces of legislation have been signed into law by Governor Eric Holcomb that the PFFUI have testified in favor of and supported. Mike and Tony, let's dive into that list.
All right, very good. And just for the record and for all of our listeners, this was a short session of the General Assembly, which meant that it was not a budget year. And it was really actually, Mike, shorter than a regular shorter session.
This is probably the shortest session I've ever been involved in.
Yeah, started about a week later than it usually does, and it finished a week before it had to.
Yes.
Okay, so the first bill on the list is House Bill 1004, Pension Matters, which I know that this was a journey for the both of you as well as our membership during this short session.
Yeah, so important component in this bill that Mike's going to go over. And this is, I think, really demonstrates the reason why we have to have a presence daily in the halls of the State House, because this provision that extends drop for members of the 77 Fund started out in a standalone bill of its own. So, Mike, tell us about how that
Well, this even goes back last summer for PMOC, Pension Management Oversight Commission.
Yeah, we do have to take a step back.
It was sent to summer study last year, and it was debated in a couple PMOC hearings. It was scheduled for a vote, and then because a legislator didn't quite understand the bill, he asked the chairman of PMOC to withhold this section that dealt with the drop from the final vote. So it basically died last summer. Tony ended up running into this legislator, the senator that had concerns with it, talked about what it actually does, eased his concerns on it, and he said that he would support it at the next session. So it was basically dead on arrival before the session even started.
Before there was even a bill.
So it, like Tony said, it had a standalone bill. It's going through the process. It goes to a Senate committee hearing, and during testimony, the actuary from Empers, actually put a big fiscal on it, and it was going to cost the employers money. They were going to have to pay more in the contributions for your pension. And when they did that, you could see the concerns on the senators in this committee that they didn't feel comfortable voting for something that could have a cost factor to it.
And that was never our intention either, is to have a cost impact to the employers.
And it wasn't. It was just the actuary for Empers was being overly cautious. And so he delayed the vote. We talked to the actuary from Empers. He actually changed the actuary on it to where it was cost neutral or close to cost neutral. It gets out committee, gets out appropriations. It passes the Senate, goes to the House, and then the fighting starts between the House members and the Senate members on something that had nothing to do with our language in the drop. It had something to do with a 13th check or a COLA for civilian perf and teachers, things like that. We were caught into that fight. So the bill basically was dead again, and then we got it resurrected into House Bill 1004 and actually Senate Bill 256. So we had the language in two different bills. And fortunately, both bills passed, House Bill 1004 and Senate Bill 256. So it took a long process to get this done. Like Tony said, it's that's why we have to have a presence there at the State House, because if we wasn't there, we wouldn't be talking about this today.
Yeah, I don't see that it would have got done. So the monitoring and sort of following follow the bouncing red ball, we did that, and we had to escort this and kind of be a shepherd for this language to make sure that it found a home in a bill that was moving and continued to move, and that finally, in the end became law and passed both chambers and signed by the governor. So that was signed on March 13th. And one of the initiatives, and I think it's important for people to understand why we wanted to entertain, and we did this in conjunction with the FOP as well, because we're part of the same retirement fund. So several years ago, maybe close to 20 years ago or more, the initial drop came into existence. And the intent was to really find a way to both help the employers predict for retirements or plan better for hiring replacements in retirement, while taking a member has a choice in taking a reduced benefit, but with a lump sum as they determine their retirement date. And so the maximum was 36 months or 3 years. We found in talking with police, FOP members, FOP leadership, I should say, that there was, and our own members, that there was an interest in seeing if they could have an additional option applied to this, and that would be to extend it out up to 5 years. So essentially that's what this bill does. There's another piece to this that we found important with regard to allowing the purpose of it is for departments to plan a little bit better, is there's a notification requirement in here now. So when a member does sign up for a drop initially or extends it, they have to notify the employer within 30 days that they made that election to enter the drop. And that simply just allows for the employer to plan a little bit better for replacements. And that impacts, the people on the street too.
Yes. So what does the bill do? It basically, what it is if you're currently in the drop, and we've got some frequently asked questions that we'll go over some of these, but Tony and I, we get a lot of phone calls, emails, texts, particularly about this bill here. So what does it do? If you're currently in the drop, as long as you don't drop before July 1st of 2024, after July 1st or on July 1st, you can elect to extend your drop up to 60 months. If you're not in the drop after July 1st or on July 1st, you can sign up to enter the drop, and you can go from 12 to 60 months would be your choices.
Right, yeah. And still, nothing has changed in terms of you only have one opportunity at drop. So whether you sign up initially or you're extending, which would mean you're already in the drop, you only have one time to sign up. So none of that ever changed. That remains existing. And a member can choose, let's say that their department's pension base increased significantly over those period of years that they were in the drop.
Our social media, I think it looks beautiful. It is very well put together and very easy to read.
So says the comms. That actually put it together.
Yes, so says the guy. Yeah, so I will beat the drum on that. So you can find that and all of these laws at pffui.com as well as on our social media. All right, so the next one is probably one of the most talked about bills in firehouses across the state of Indiana, and that would be House Bill 1027, which is the fire department work schedule.
Correct. Currently in law, it says a firefighter, career firefighter, for every 24 hours they work, they have to have 48 hours off. And you can do a modified where you do it 24 on, 24 off, so on, and then 4 days off. So one of those two. But we were getting, in the last year or two, I've gotten calls and texts, and I know Tony has too, about going to an alternative work schedule, 48-96. And the way the law was written, it doesn't allow that. So we had a legislator contact us that had some constituent firefighters that was wanting the opportunity to do this. So this legislator, we worked with him and said, and we wanted to protect what was already in law, but we said, if both sides agree, the administration and the majority of the firefighters, only if both vote and agree to do this, then you can go to an alternative work schedule. We didn't want the administration to force a different work schedule on the firefighters, and we didn't want the firefighters forcing a different work schedule on the administration. So this is an agreement both sides have to come up with.
Yeah, and really uses the model that exists today through the existing meet and confer law, or if a local has a local collective bargaining ordinance, that they use that process to actually talk this out. The state union is not in a position to tell any department what is the best schedule for them. That's up to the members and to management to decide what is best for them. This law now simply just puts some guardrails up, but allows for both sides to have the opportunity to explore and even try out, to some extent, an alternative work schedule that exceeds 24 hours. Now, I have gotten a couple of questions about, the work schedule and how this particular statute, not the recently passed bill, but the existing statute. One thing to point out is that the maximum work hours is what is prescribed in your regular schedules. But if a member decides to pick up additional overtime that's unscheduled, that's up to he or she to do, and it also doesn't affect trade time. So that's one important aspect to know as well. And it's the same statute, by the way, that allows for mandatory callbacks too. So there's a lot that is in the existing statute, but this House Enrolled Act 1027 actually just focused on the alternative work schedule. So I think those are a couple important things to note too when we talk about work schedule and how that goes. And this bill has no effect on FLSA. That's a federal standard and on how firefighters are compensated and what the overtime thresholds are. So just to be clear.
All right, so moving on to House Bill 1021, which is Green Alert for Missing Veterans.
This one here we got involved with because more than likely we're going to be the ones running on these green alerts. This is like the amber alert, silver alert. Green alert is only for missing veterans. And the reason we need to be concerned about this is normally, and this is testimony from the experts, when a veteran goes missing, more than likely they're going to have mental issues, PTSD, things like that. And there's a good chance that this person's going to be armed. So if you're out looking for a green alert person or you come across one, you need to use precaution on that. That one of those two things could be going on with this patient.
And it's good to know. And it's a pause for first responders to take a different approach to engaging with that missing person. So it's good. I'm glad that we're supportive of this bill, and it's a good bill and going to be a good law.
So House Bill 1142 establishes the Hoosier First Responder Medal of Honor.
We were approached by a legislator on this one. He wanted to honor not only first responders, police, fire, and EMS that were killed in the line of duty or critically injured in the line of duty. And this came about, a sheriff's deputy in his district was shot on a run. And what he wanted to do is create like a Medal of Honor along with what the military gets. So there's some steps to go through to get this, but this is going forward after July 1st. If you're a first responder, that you get critically injured or killed in the line of duty, this will be a medal from the governor, a Medal of Honor.
Yeah, and it's I think it's appropriate, and we supported this this idea and this concept to recognize those who are doing heroic things.
So moving on to House Bill 1302, which covers emergency medical services.
Do you want to take this one, Tony?
Sure, I'll take an approach. So Mike and I started working with the Indiana Fire Chiefs Association back last summer before the session even started to begin to conceptualize how emergency medical services and providing 911 EMS response in the state of Indiana was looked at, and sort of helping to understand where the gaps are. So one of the things that and this was a priority bill of the Indiana Fire Chiefs Association, and we partnered with them throughout the whole process when the legislative session began. And essentially what this calls for is for counties to report on what their EMS system looks like in their entire county. So this could be cities and towns, and maybe it's fire-based EMS, maybe it's contractual EMS, maybe it's a county-wide system or a hospital-based system. So this is requiring counties, all 92 counties, to submit what is happening from an EMS perspective in their counties, for the purpose of doing an analysis of understanding where gaps are and learning what we don't know about how EMS is applied in the state of Indiana. In addition, I think there is an additional requirement that there is some data provided about current response time averages for non-transport response and then a transporting ambulance response. So it's really, in many regards, a very benign bill. We started talking with members of the Indiana County Commissioners Association and the Indiana Association of Counties along the way to give some educational thing. And I think that there's going to be, there'll be some things that are learned from this that may springboard into another bill about the relevance and the importance of EMS in the state of Indiana come the 2025 session.
Yep. And like Tony said, we don't know what we don't know. So this is the first step into a bill for the 25 session, collect the data, and then determine on what we need to do in 25.
House Bill 1121, the local income tax.
Well, this is a bill that was specific for one of our new locals in Floyd County. They merged, I think, 3 fire districts into one. And when they did that, each one was collecting public safety LOIT. When they merged all 3, they were penalized for basically merging the 3 departments. So what this does is...
And they didn't get the public safety LOIT after they merged.
Right.
Yeah.
So that this corrects something that happened because they're doing the right thing. They're consolidating services and being taxpayer friendly, but they got penalized for doing it. So this just corrects what an unknown consequence for doing that.
Yep.
House Bill 1385, Community Cares Initiative Grant Pilot Program.
Tony, our resident EMS.
Yes. So this actually, the portion of this bill, and this is there are really 2 major things happening that involve EMS and mobile integrated health. So the initial Community Cares Initiative Grant Pilot Program was in a standalone bill, and I think it was Senate Bill 10. And throughout the process, this language was moved into House Bill 1385. And the Community Cares Initiative Grant Program essentially establishes a Community Cares Initiative grant for those departments who want to start or enhance mobile integrated health services for behavioral health components in their communities. So it's an initial step, and I think that will be very beneficial in expanding our locals' ability to address some of these concerns within their communities. The second part, and the original piece of the 1385 language, has to do with reimbursement for transport ambulance services. So many of our local affiliates are involved in out-of-hospital care and ambulance transport. So essentially the other part of the bill, and we followed along on this very closely because this was taking different turns and the language was changing throughout the process, but the legislators' idea and mission, I think, for objective maybe is the better term, is to ensure that EMS transport reimbursement from private insurance companies that don't have an agreed to a contract for services and reimbursement contract, or lack of arbitration or something like this, had a standardized way to get the reimbursement. So what this does is it allows for the private insurances companies to reimburse it for the ambulance transport up to 400% of the published rate for Medicare reimbursement, or a maximum amount that would be in ordinance for their ambulance transport bill, whichever is lower. So it's an opportunity to, I think, attempt to more fairly do the reimbursement. And, as we all know, we deliver pretty high quality pre-hospital care in our transporting areas. And we really don't get the reimbursement to cover the cost that it takes to roll out an ambulance. But this is just an effort to sort of help fill some of those costs associated with providing the service.
Senate Bill 33, distribution of public safety income.
Okay, this deals with the public safety lit. In law, cities, towns, counties get a distribution of the public safety lit. Fire territories, fire districts, and townships can ask the county for their portion, but the county is not mandated to give them. And the concept of this bill's been around for several years. But what passed in Senate Bill 33 is now when a township, district, or territory goes to the county commissioners or county council to ask for their share, they have to have a public hearing for the request, and they have to have a public vote on this. So this will allow that unit to come in, give their reasons why, and they have to take an official vote, public, to either accept or deny the request. This is, before it's always been they come in and ask for it, and they say no, and see you next year.
Yeah, and there wasn't really a requirement for action to be taken, right?
Right.
And this helps fund, our departments.
Right. And this is not coming out of the cities or the town's portion. It's not diluting their portion. It's coming out of the county where it's supposed to come out of. And that wraps up the bills. We were tracking many more bills than what we talked about today. We had a lot of bills that we testified in that didn't make it through the session. It's important that we're there every day watching. There was some curveballs thrown at us that we were able to testify or talk to the legislators behind the scenes to either get the amendment or the bill withdrawn. So we had some success there. Like Tony said earlier, this was an extremely short session, but we had a very successful session.
I think we did. I agree. As we sort of put a wrap and a lid on the 2024 session, we're already starting for the legislative priorities and drafting those for the 2025 session, which is going to be a long session, which means it's a biennial budget year. So there's some targets that we want to put together. We're going to spend the summer outlining those and building a strategy for implementing bill drafts and things like this as we go forward. In addition to that, we're at a place right now where we will be planning our legislative tour with legislators in their districts, specifically reaching out and prioritizing those legislators that we have not had the conversation or the opportunity to go through our 1977 retirement and disability system presentation that we do as a matter of education. And it's nice to get into the districts and talk to legislators where they are in a more relaxed setting, kind of on their turf as well, and to give us an opportunity not only to provide that education, which is something that has been going on for 13 years now, maybe 13.
2011, 12.
Yeah. So it has been very successful, but it also gives us an opportunity in a setting where, it's not a fundraiser, there's not a big line. This is a one-on-one. And we usually do this with the FOP as well, to sit down and have these conversations and talk about our goals and learn a little bit more about the legislators. So it's a good opportunity to do that. I would imagine that we'll probably be visiting another dozen to, 18 legislators in this next.
And a backstory for some of the listeners out there that don't know the backstory is the reason we started doing this was because every session there was 2 or 3 bills filed to change our pension from a defined benefit to a defined contribution like a 401k. And we met with these legislators and started being proactive in explaining what our pension is. It's more than just a pension. Build in its long-term disability, short-term disability, a survivor's benefit, a death benefit. There's so much more, and it's cost-effective. If you started piecemealing this out, it would cost so much more to the employer and the employee to have this. So it's a good bang for the buck for the not only the employer but the employee in the 77th fund. So we started doing this. In the last several years, there's not been any bills filed to change our pension to a defined contribution.
So the education has been helpful in selling our benefit package,
right?
And justifying it and talking about what it is and what it isn't.
And we started a couple years ago explaining because we're wanting to enhance our pensions. So we've not only been talking about what our pension does, now we're saying what it doesn't do. It doesn't do enough to. So we're putting these thoughts in these legislators about what we need to do now to further advance our pensions.
That's right.
Well, Mike, Tony, thank you guys for all of your hard work during this session here. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts in being the watchdogs down at the State House for the benefit of our members.
Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of things I want to talk about before we wrap today. So back in the first week of March, I joined 22 other members from Indiana out in Washington, D.C. for the IAFF Legislative Conference, where we met with all 9 members of our congressional delegation from Indiana or their staff and our 2 U.S. senators to talk about issues important. I just want to touch on 2 things. So when we were out, we talked a little bit about the WEP and GPO, so the WEP, the windfall elimination provision, that provides a penalty essentially for public safety members who worked a career and then are penalized in some cases because they've been exempt from Social Security but have paid in full Social Security and met the minimum requirements, maybe in previous employment or employment after retirement or on a second job. So we talked about this because the action with both the FOP nationally and the IFF is to see if we can repeal the windfall elimination provision once and for all. The other big item that we're addressing is the SAFER grants and the FIRE Act grants are expiring and up for reauthorization come September. So this is a vital program that sees over $360 million annually in both of those. So SAFER $360 million, FIRE Act $360 million, and has been really beneficial to our affiliates and fire departments across Indiana to both add staffing to help meet 1710 standards and also to provide some equipment and needs from those departments. So we were out to advocate for that. Before we finish, I want to switch a little bit to the political action side of what we do. So we just went through this list of bills that we were able to shepherd through and advocated for the benefit of our members. It takes the support of legislators who understand our agenda and support our agendas and support our members. So this year is the elections for all 100 members of the House and 25 members, half of the Senate. So as we go into the spring season now, we are well within the primary election season. So on May 7th is the primary election, and our political action side of the organization is the Indiana Professional Firefighters Political Action Committee. So our PAC has endorsed in 26 primary elections, and there are still other vacancies that we won't endorse in those particular races. But within the next few weeks, members should be getting a communication from Mike and I expressing the endorsement of our PAC for certain legislators in that particular district. So we really appreciate our members looking at and considering those endorsed members of the General Assembly as they go out and cast their vote, and their families go out and cast their vote in the May 7th primary. And one thing that I'll add is that we recently held our Thomas H. Miller Legislative Conference for the PFFUI in late February. And as part of that, we invited all of the gubernatorial candidates running in the primary. And we heard from them, each of them, most live and in person, and a couple of videos because the candidates couldn't come in, of both parties. So we had a front row seat, or at least our leadership around the state had a front row seat to listening to those that are vying for their party's nomination to be the next governor of Indiana. So our governor is term limited. So at the end of the day, we will have a new governor come 2025. So we're engaged in that process as well. So this is Mike's last session before he retires. So Mike, on behalf of all of our members, and more sincerely and personally from me, thank you for your dedication each and every day of the legislative session and outside of the session that you spend advocating for our members and advocating for our mission in the halls of the State House and with our legislators. I sincerely appreciate all that you've done these last 14 sessions. And we might see you around.
Oh, thank you, Tony. It means a lot. It's I've enjoyed every minute of it, but you're right. There'll be somebody new sitting in this chair for the next podcast on legislatives.
And when he says every minute, I'm going to think that there might have been a few seconds where you did not enjoy the current situation. But that's okay. I think it all comes with the territory.
Well, thank you, Mike, for all of your years of dedicated service to our members and their well-being. So thank you very much, and I hope you get to enjoy your retirement.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for listening to the PFFUI podcast. Follow us on social media by searching the Professional Firefighters Union of Indiana. For more information about news and upcoming events, visit www.pffui.com. Until next time, this is PFFUI Communications Director Eric Shoaib. Stay safe.